I'm Penny and this is my channel. So as I'm sure you guys are aware, I've become a huge fan of the Mass Effect series since I first got into the games pretty recently. I've had 2 videos up really recently on Mass Effect. The first was on the first 2 games, and the second was my first impressions of the third game. There were so many numbers in that sentence I couldn't even keep track of them, but anyway, I'm a huge fan of the series, and now, like I said, I will be doing a Mass Effect 3 review, and I've since then finished the game and been thinking about it so much ever since, so I'm here to do my review today of Mass Effect 3.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to start with the combat. I love the combat in Mass Effect 3. It's so polished and tight in this game, and it really enhances the entire game, having the combat feel so polished and well off. It's very speedy, but not to the point where it feels too rushed. It's a really good balance, and I loved it in this game. The enemies have also been more diverse than the first 2 games. It feels like there's a bunch of different enemies to fight instead of, especially in Mass Effect 2, there were lots of similar enemies showing up, and it was often in very straight corridor kind of sequences. Mass Effect 3 really picks up on that. The landscapes are very more sprawling and diverse, definitely, than the first 2 games. Like, there's lots of different areas you'll see, and the enemies have also, there's like 3 different types of groups of enemies, sort of, if that makes sense. There's Geth, Cerberus, and the Reapers, but within those 3 groups, there's also a bunch of different enemies, and it really feels very diverse, like I said, and it really helps the game, I think. Speaking of making the game more interesting through, lack of corridor areas, they've really done some good parts to kind of break up the sequences in this game with more interesting sequences, if that makes sense. Like, instead of just every mission being drop down, go through some enemies, finish up with a cutscene and get back up, they've broken up some of them with, like, turret sequences and some really interesting parts. Like, there's one part with the Geth where you have to I think they kind of call it upload yourself into, like, their virtual world, and it's kind of like made as a virtual world to you, and you go through that with a kind of different sort of gun, and it's all explained pretty well in the game with a Geth helping you out and everything, but it is interesting to have the game, break it up and make it more interesting. On the subject of missions, I want to talk about side missions quickly. They're not quite as prominent in this game. You tend to get most of your side missions by just overhearing things and then going and finding whatever that person's looking for. That's most of them. There are a few that are done through like whole conversations, but generally that's how you'll get most of the side missions. And most of the actual missions themselves aren't so much, they're not like the old games where you'd actually go down and go down and do combat and like find something, do cutscenes and everything. In this one, most of the stuff you need for side quests is just found by scanning planets, similar to Mass Effect 2, but it's done a little differently in this one, and I think I preferred it more in Mass Effect 3. It kind of added to the whole Reaper threat, since the Reapers are around when you're scanning and they can become a real threat to you and give you a game over and everything. It just kind of reminds you that you are actually on a big whole quest to save the galaxy and defeat the Reapers, and you can't just be spending all your time going around scanning planets and doing what you want, because you do have a mission to do. The graphics and the sound in this game blew me away completely. It is so gorgeous, both on console and on PC. The graphics in particular have just evolved so much since the first game. I go back and look at some pictures I took playing the first game now, and it's just how much that game has grown in the graphics is just amazing. It's just so wonderful. This game seems more cinematic than the first 2 as well. Some cutscenes you'll see the most beautiful landscapes and like sprawling camera angles and everything, and it's really nice, and it's very movie-like, and I really appreciate that. It looks so beautiful, and the sound is also wonderful. Like I said, it's very emotional in some cutscenes, and it'll really, some of the melodies are so haunting, they'll get stuck in your head after you play the game, and you'll be trying to get to sleep at night and just have this one song in your head and be reliving that moment, and it's a very emotive soundtrack, and it's really good, and those 2 especially, the graphics and the sound, just blew me away completely. I was so in love with them. One of the biggest parts of the Mass Effect series for me is the storyline. I'm really invested in it, and I really enjoy the story. I love the cutscenes, I love the dialogue wheel, I love being able to make choices and everything, so the story is a big part of the game for me, and Mass Effect 3, like I said in my first impressions video, is definitely the most emotional out of all 3 games. It got me crying a few times. I love the fact that a game can make me feel that way. I think it's amazing to have a game invoke that emotional response in a person, and I know I'm not alone. There's lots of other people who have felt that way, so that's one of the things. I think it's amazing that this game can do that. I love seeing so many old faces from the first 2 games and trying to kind of unite the galaxy together to try and stop this one final threat. It's just an amazing feeling throughout the entire game, right until the end, and I know this is a huge sore spot for everyone online, so I'm not going to go into it in a huge way because there's so many other rants you could hear and read and listen to and all that stuff, but the ending did disappoint me a little bit. I'm not going to lie about that. I feel like it was left purposely very ambiguous, and I feel like they really should have clarified a little more and not left it quite so open-ended and open for speculation. that was their intention as far as I'm aware, and as much as I can appreciate that, like, that's what their intention was, I do wish there had been more clarification and not left quite so open to speculation, because that's what I want. I want closure to the series. This is the final game in a trilogy. I would like to see my decisions play out, and I would like to have closure on the entire thing and find out what happened to the characters that I've invested so many emotions into, but that's just my take. I know some people are happy with it, but the majority didn't like it, but that's just how I feel about it. Finally, before I finish this review up, I just want to quickly talk about the multiplayer. I was worried that it'd feel very tacked on and not so complete, but it actually feels really fun. Like the combat, it's very sleek and polished, and it really does complement the game in a nice way. It's nice to have that multiplayer thing to go back to constantly, even after you've finished up the game and you don't feel like playing through again. This game was fantastic, and I just can't get over it. I haven't stopped thinking about it for like the last 3 days, and that definitely means the game has done something amazing, so you know, my take on it is I thought it was great, and I would like to hear your opinions too, so if you've played or you have a comment on something that I've said, please leave it in the comments, because I would love to hear it and reply to it and find out what you guys thought about it. So I'm going to finish this up now. Don't forget you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and my website, which is up and running again. The links are all in the description, and I should have another video up soon. I'm going to be reviewing SSX, the new snowboarding game for PS3 and 360, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!